This is me, and I'm about to start a 12-hour shift working on an ambulance as an EMT. The first thing I'll do is make some coffee. I'm going to need this to get through the night. It's currently 7 p.m. right now, and I'll be working till 7 a.m. Working a night shift always feels better at first, and then it starts to really hit you about halfway through the shift that you're going to have to be awake for another 6 hours. But for now, I'll just enjoy some coffee and get my clothes on, and then I'll head over to the ambulance bay. One of my favorite parts of the shift is when I get to get on my motorcycle and ride through the city on the way to work. I really like the fresh air, and I feel like you get to experience the city in a completely different way when you're on a motorcycle as opposed to a car. Getting places in a car is never really that fun for me. It's hard to get through traffic, you can't lane split. It's just an unenjoyable experience that's stressful, whereas on the motorcycle, I really feel free. As soon as I get to work, we already have a call, and this is something that happens when you get to work a little bit early. It's sort of a courtesy. My boss actually asks everybody that works here to show up to work slightly early. That way, if somebody gets a call at the very end of their shift, they don't have to stick around for an extra hour if they get held up on the wall at the hospital, and you can just start a couple minutes early. I'm not going to include any patient details or any specifics for a lot of the calls I went on today, but I'll just give a brief overview of sort of what it's like. For some of the calls, I end up going to cancer facilities and taking patients to do chemotherapy. Other calls, I go into patients' houses and I get to really sort of see a picture of what they're like. Maybe I'll meet their families. Maybe I'm even showing up to a homeless shelter. Seeing all of these different places that patients are living in really emphasizes how different treatment plans might need to be if a patient is, for example, living in a homeless shelter, or if they're living in a senior living facility, or if they're just living independently. These sorts of things impact whether patients can access care, and that's something I'm becoming more and more aware of as time goes by. One thing that's really cool about working as an EMT is you are totally exposed to the city that you're working in. A lot of people go to college and they never really experience the city that they go to college in. They don't see the people that live there. They don't see the houses. They don't see the lights at night. They don't see all of the areas outside of the college town and the suburbs and the rural areas. While working at this ambulance company, I transported patients all over Oregon. And for one trip, I even had to transport somebody from Eugene to Seattle in one day. During this shift, I only had 4 calls, which might not sound like a lot for a 12-hour shift. After each call, I have to clean the gurney, spray it down, switch out the linens, get a new pillow. And at the end of the shift, there's a checklist I have to fill out. I have to get more gas for the ambulance. These are just some basic things that I have to do every single day. Today was a little bit different since I got there and there was immediately a call, so I didn't have to do inventory and a couple other typical things that I would normally have to do, so I did those at the end of the shift today. But usually during the night shift, there's a little more downtime, and that allows you to rest a little bit, maybe even take a nap and have your partner monitor the radio, which is pretty common. Even after this shift ended, I had a long day ahead of me. I was studying for anatomy. I had a big exam coming up that counted for 90% of my grade because the way the class was structured was that you could drop all of the previous exams and have the final lab exam count for up to 90% of your grade. One picture of a cranial nerve can't help you identify the same cranial nerve when it's a brain dissection versus when it's a dissection of the skull and just the nerves poking out of one of the foramen. That's why I went to every single open lab that was offered at the University of Oregon, and it's really cool that the University of Oregon has its own cadaver lab, which isn't that common. Not even all of the medical schools have a cadaver lab. The lab is in the basement of the science library at the University of Oregon with all of these incandescent lights, and sometimes you could even hear the dissection class sawing through bones and preparing dissections for the anatomy lab. Working as an EMT with patients who are on the edge of life and then going into the cadaver lab and seeing all of these dissections really causes you to think about life in a deeper way. It really helped me to zoom out, especially in the midst of stress and all of the things that come with working full time and trying to apply to medical school, to really just appreciate little things like time I got to spend with my family, my brother, and my dog. Even little things like watching a movie felt more meaningful because I knew deep down that my sight, my hearing, and all of my other faculties would not last forever. Once I'm done with a long day of working, studying, and going to classes, oftentimes I like to leave the library and get on my motorcycle to ride around town. This is some footage from the summer and me on my motorcycle in the summer. I love Eugene in the summer. There are just so many lakes you can go swimming in. There's rivers that you can go fishing at. You can just go hang out with your friends and go out into nature because Eugene just has so much nature, and I'm grateful for all the experiences I was able to have while I was in college there. This is a picture of me wearing my motorcycle jacket looking out at Blue Pool, which is one of the hikes I love to go on near Eugene. My name is Bradley. I'm an EMT. I majored in neuroscience at the University of Oregon, and now I'm currently applying to medical school. If you thought this video was interesting, you liked seeing what it's sort of like to be an EMT, to go into the anatomy lab, study medicine, you might want to click some of the buttons below this video to follow me on my journey towards becoming a doctor and helping out patients. You can see stories, you can hear advice from me about life, about becoming a doctor yourself if that's something you're interested in. And you can just show some support. I put a lot of effort into these videos and I try to make them enjoyable for you. And it's really completely free to support me. All you have to do is click some buttons, type some things into your keyboard, and it really does mean a lot to me. Thank you for spending so much time watching this video, and I hope it was enjoyable.